Welcome to the Sales Mastery Summit. I'm Mary Pohl, your host, and with me today is KimBallinger, a top sales performer with Fonterra. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, Mary.
I'm so glad that you're able to join us. I love talking with top sales performers who have been referred by one of the experts of our summit, because I know that you're standing out among a very esteemed group of peers. So congratulations to you and all that you must have accomplished in your career.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And you're joining us from New Zealand today, so much appreciated for making that work. Can you give us, to start out, give us some background on your sales experience?
Okay, so like you said, Mary, I'm working for Fonterra, which is a large dairy cooperative based out of New Zealand. I've worked for Fonterra for the last 20 years, and most of that time and experience has been in our B2B side of the business, so our ingredients part, business to business. And worked in a number of different geographies through Brazil, Mexico, US, and China in my sales experience.
Okay. And about how many years? Oh, you said 20 years, mainly with Fonterra in B2B. And as you have grown your skills and grown your experience at the same time, what would you say you figured out that's really helped you accelerate the results that you're able to accomplish relative to other peers in your company?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of people think to be good at sales, you need to be an extrovert, you need to talk a lot, etc. But I think what I've figured out actually is that listening, asking good questions and listening to that response and picking up on those non-verbal cues is actually really critical. So it's not about doing all the talking, it's about doing more listening than talking.
Okay. And when you talk non-verbal cues, for one point, do you have certain things that you look for, or was there a certain training that you went to really help build your acumen in that area?
Yeah, I was really lucky when I started my sales part of my career, which is when I went to Brazil. I went on a program with Jack Malcolm, and we called that in Fonterra the way we sell. So this was a program we set up with Jack. And as part of that course, we learned a little bit about picking up on those nonverbal cues and seeing and reading the room and knowing when to sort of stop and ask and clarify when there might be a concern. And often that doesn't come through in the verbal, it comes through in the physical. So that was actually part of a course that I did early on, and I think that's really paid off, and particularly when dealing with other cultures in other parts of the world, it's been really relevant. So the Chinese, it's what they don't say rather than what they do say, which tells you how you're going, and it's when it's time to sort of stop and pick up and make sure that you really, got them with you. So
exactly,
really valuable.
Well, I'm curious how tuned into the fact that if you're really paying attention to nonverbal skills as well, you must be present and paying attention, and your mind can't be wandering off and thinking about what else you want to say.
Yeah, so active listening is about being present, and that is definitely a key part of this, and to be seen to be present. So like you say, not wandering off. So it's not just looking at the person, but actively being involved with what they're really saying and what's going on.
Exactly. So would you say that you are really a standout in these areas of skills, and why is it that your peers maybe didn't latch onto it in the same way that you did?
Yeah, I think sometimes people just feel more comfortable in talking a lot, and that was one of the things I learnt earlier on, is asking good questions and the power of good questions. To understand the situation, and that certainly is something that I think my peers sometimes struggle with, is around stopping, listening, asking the questions, preparing for the call, preparing those questions that you need to ask to move forward in the sales cycle. And I think that is a standout quality. I don't think it's necessarily inherent. I think it's something that I've learned through some of the things that I've gone on. But yet it is the most common mistake that I see in my peers.
Okay. So that's interesting, because you're taking your schooling to heart, putting it to practice, and really building it into a habit for yourself. And even if somebody else had the same schooling, they haven't gone through the next steps to really make it work for them.
Yeah, and I think it is about taking on those and adapting those and using them, and also to revisit it. And we're all learning, and we're always continuously learning. So going back and revisiting it, actually having peer review, um, taking on the feedback, continuously trying to improve what you do, I think really pays off. So that's something that I've definitely put into practice is to continue to learn through this journey.
You sound like a natural continuous learner. I was curious, how do you push yourself to continue to grow and learn and, set new hurdles for yourself to overcome?
Yeah, so different parts of that. One part is to continuously look for those roles that have that challenge so you can continue to learn. The other thing is I do mentor and coach a number of our different sales executives through our company. And as part of that, I think as part of the learning, it's a two-way process because you continue to learn as you're coaching and mentoring others. So that's also a key part of that. And then also the third part would be also going on refresh programs because at the end of the day, even though I've had a number of years of experience, there's always things to pick up on. It's always nice to go back and I always pick up on new things with those refresher programs.
Okay, that makes sense. And what would you say is key to cultivating your attitude for success? Because sales, especially 20 years in sales, you certainly have figured out how to keep your mindset focused on success, even though there's just inherently a lot of failure in the profession. So, what have you done to really hone that in yourself?
And I think one key thing is keeping open-minded, being open-minded about new situations and scenarios. The world's continuously changing, the way we sell, the way we approach our customers, the way we turn up. We're in a different environment each year. I've seen a big change over those last 20 years on how salespeople are treated and how that call goes. I think, continue to prepare for those. Preparation is a key part of being good at sales.
Hmm.
You go unprepared at your peril, I think. So good preparation. And as I said before, I really do appreciate peer review. So, in tricky scenarios and that just to reflect on those with others, as part of that learning and part of keeping current and cultivating, as you said, that attitude. It's all part of not being, the expert necessarily, but always being prepared to learn. And I've always found that that's really paid off.
Okay. Do you have a formal process for peer reviews, or could you talk us through how you accomplish those?
Yes, well, I think earlier on in my sales career, obviously I was at the forefront of sales, and now I tend to be more in a coaching and mentoring position. But there's still some, where I'm, key in that sales process where I'm going in with, some of those big accounts and big deals. So as part of that peer review, going through the sales call plan, preparing it, getting others to reflect on it and review it. And I think there's nothing like a fresh set of eyes to pick up on things that you may not have thought through, even to the point that we do role plays in the company.
Okay.
So we'll actually actively have somebody who is the buyer and we're the supplier, dealing with them. And we role play those scenarios, and they ask us all the tough questions, and that actually helps and pays off because it's really, really important. And I think you need to do that. You need to go through some of these role plays on those big deals to make sure you're really, really comfortable. And it's amazing how often the actual sales call that you go on and practice in reality is just similar to the one that you've just role played.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, a lot of those same questions come out, and you think, right, and you really hit it, and you really feel good about it. And so that preparation really pays off.
Okay. Well, and I can see if you're role playing with somebody that's got good experience as well, they've heard the types of things you're going to encounter, so it really is realistic.
Correct, yeah, and they always know all the all the hard questions to ask, so because they've been in
Exactly.
front of the customers themselves and had those sort of situations. So it's identifying those people in our company and outside of our company to have that review and peer review and conversations.
Okay, so you do it outside of the company as well. So I heard you say you do role plays. You also review each other's sales plans and sales prep. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay, and then as well as ride-alongs.
sure. And so as part of that also is after we have a review of how it went as well. So we involve a number of people in those reviews of those big big call plans and big calls. So we review how it went afterwards. So that's also part of the wrap-up process, and look at, how to go, what could we have done differently next time, etc. It's not a celebrating, hopefully success from going, that step further on those complex sales.
Okay. I had an expert for the summit say the way you get a graduate degree in sales is to review your performance and then figure out what you're going to tweak next time. And you do that enough times and you're a pro.
Yeah, so true. Couldn't have said it better myself. That's definitely how it works. Those reviews are critical and so easy. That's something that people forget to do afterwards, sort of carried away with the call or whatever, and don't go back and review. And it's about celebrating the positives that you've got, you did really well in, as well as looking at for those things that you could tweak to be even better in the next one.
Yep, perfect. So, today, especially, you say you've seen a lot of changes over your 20 years. I would say right now there are more distractions than ever for every function, but especially for sales. How do you keep yourself focused from all of the distractions that come up so that you can accomplish your goals?
Yeah, and distractions are such a big pitfall for salespeople. I'm not sure whether other parts or other functions have so many distractions as salespeople do, or whether we just look for them, but certainly a pitfall. I think one of the key things I do to avoid those distractions is always planning and diarising. So I actually put in my diary, and I put in planning time, and I diarise it so that I stick to it. And for all intents and purposes, it's like a commitment. It's like a meeting. It's in the diary, and people respect that. And my PA is pretty good at holding people accountable and making sure that people are not disrupting throughout those periods. So definitely diarising, preparation, and planning helps, and also putting those big milestones into the calendar so that you keep focused on the task ahead, and those distractions hopefully can fit around those big tasks.
Okay, so you schedule the big rocks, so to speak, in Stephen Covey language to make sure that's
Sure.
protected and you can get it done. That makes sense. And you already talked about mentoring others as a way to leverage your expertise, and it also accelerates your learning curve. Do you have any good mentoring tips that you've figured out through the course of coaching others?
I think one key thing is that the person you're mentoring has to come up with the goods themselves. I think often we fall into that pitch trap of coaching where you think you're telling them or giving them, you feel like I've got all this experience that I can add. But at the end of the day, it's got to come within somebody. So I'm a big believer of throughout those mentoring and coaching relationships is actually allowing the person to self-discover.
Okay.
So coming up with and asking them, how do you think you went, and getting them to reflect on how it's going and what they felt they could have done differently, because that's so much more powerful than actually telling them what you think.
Okay, that's smart. And I would imagine you have some great stories to share with them of your learnings and ahas throughout your career. What would you say was a big turning point for you in becoming more successful as a sales professional? Was there any particular aha that you had that kind of changed around the course for you?
Um, Probably a couple of things. First one would be actually starting off my sales career with some really good programs that could put some sort of infrastructure in place for me as a base. My background is as an engineer,
Okay.
so I don't naturally come into sales as having the perfect, would you say, background for sales as people potentially would suggest you need to have. Having said that, getting that base was a real turning point. It was a real aha moment to learn that sales, you can, learn it. It's not something that's inherent that you come to the world being blessed at. So that really helped, and I think that sort of kick-started things, so I had a good base to go from. But I think the other part of it is, and you mentioned this in your question, is around learning from the experience, learning how important understanding those personal objectives that you might be dealing with inside a manufacturer or a customer is just as important as those KPIs that might be company goals or strategies, and learning that the hard way. So you get all of that in the theory, but actually putting into practice and actually doing a few things wrong and actually discovering and not getting that deal that you thought was so close because of somebody's personal objectives that just weren't going to work because it's not what they wanted. So those sort of learnings and being able to learn from them and not to do them again and not have the same embarrassment as I've had another and making those mistakes, but also being able to pass those on to others. As part of that coaching and mentoring and sharing those pitfalls and the things that you've done wrong as well as the successes. And I think in a company a lot of people know the successes that you've had in terms of the deals you've done, etc., and the sales you've made, but it's also sharing some of those moments that haven't gone so well. Right. That actually it's a big part of it. Yeah. And as part of those aha moments really is probably through the mistakes as opposed to just the successes.
Okay. I love that you embrace that because that is where our biggest learning comes from.
Sure does.
Well, Kim, do you have any last words of advice for our viewers who might be earlier in their sales career and trying to figure out how they can accelerate their own success?
Yeah, I think just for new people starting off, there's no recipe for a great salesperson apart from being prepared to ask good questions, to listen, to not to do all the talking, to reflect on what you're doing, to understand your customer strategy and their business well, and look at great value propositions where you can bring something that really helps them on their track, and always think externally as opposed to internally. So those would be my key words of advice.
Okay, very smart tips. Well, thank you so much, Kim, for sharing your hard-earned wisdom with us and helping our viewers in their own careers. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mary. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in and investing in your own success. The Sales Mastery Summit is here to help you never stop learning from the best. Take care.